So, we were discussing the relative friendliness of expansions for alts in the Azeroth review last night, and a question popped up on the video today about defining alt-friendliness. Essentially, neither Legion nor Battle for Azeroth can be considered alt-friendly, despite what Blizzard managed to say whilst keeping a straight face. And in this video, I'm going to explain my views a little. So let's take Warlords of Draenor as what I would describe as the most alt-friendly expansion there's ever been. When creating your alt, you ran through the usual things that you were doing in any expansion, including the latest ones. You'd level it to cap, you'd run dungeons, getting your item level to the point where you could queue for heroic dungeons, and gear up a bit in there. There was the initial nonsense of the Apexis crystals, which stopped it being a perfectly alt-friendly expansion, but that didn't last long if all you wanted was to move along the legendary quest line. During each content patch, of which there were few, there may also have been some world content to quest through. Once these basic preparations were complete, you'd be ready to do whatever you wanted to do. If you wanted to run LFR, only raiding, you could do that. You'd get gear from LFR, and when the next raid tiers LFR came out, you'd be high enough item level to queue for that. If you wanted to run challenge mode dungeons, you could do that too. You wouldn't need to do anything outside dungeons. Let's say you wanted to do more progress style raiding. You could either do this in a guild or a pug. If you did it in a guild, you ran your normal and maybe also heroic in the week it opened, and then followed the usual progress arc for that guild. If you wanted to pug, then you'd sign up in the usual way and keep doing that each week. You'd get enough gear to keep up with the curve by doing that. If you wanted to craft, then you'd spend a lot of time in your garrison doing just that. Unless you were a skinner, in which case there was a bit of outside work to be done. If you just wanted to be a money mule, then you'd do a load of missions each day and maybe go after new followers. The point is that whichever of those aspects of the game you wanted to do, there was minimal content you had to complete outside it. There was little to no compulsion to do content that you didn't really want to do. Now, this was considered a pretty grim situation for your main, but for alts it was a godsend. No spending time doing peripheral activities just to equip yourself for what you actually wanted to do. Now let's move on to Legion, which Blizzard announced right from the start would be the most alt-friendly expansion ever. If you want to run Mythic Plus or Raiding, then it's likely you need to do the other as well, along with World Quest. Not so much for the gear, because that's the same as in previous expansions, but for the artifact power to be competitive. If the content you wanted to do was gear dependent, you'd also be wanting the legendaries, and that meant doing a whole host of things. If you wanted to craft, then you had to carry out a series of quests, including some mythic dungeons and raids in order to do that. They weren't just extra content for those who wanted it. If they wanted to just bring in extra content for interest, they could have kept the quests and given crafting materials as rewards rather than patterns. That way the content would be there for those who were interested, but not important for those who were not. But it wasn't. It was compulsory for crafters if you actually wanted to be able to craft the full range. Note that I didn't include the pattern ranks in this. Where you obtain those ranks through crafting, then it's all well and good because you are being rewarded for doing the content you want your alt to do. But questing is not crafting, dungeons are not raids, world quests are not dungeons, and so on. Now, some people would say that all this makes for a much better expansion and is a good thing, and I'm not arguing against that. But the point is that it is not alt-friendly. People roll an alt for one of three reasons. 1, because they just like the idea of having multiple classes for whatever reason. 2, because there is not enough to do on their main, but they want to play more World of Warcraft. And 3, because they have a specific piece of content in mind for that alt. In the latter case, which is fairly common I think, people are not going to want to do a load of content which they didn't have in mind for the alt just to be able to access the content they do want. And this is ultimately what friendliness is in this context. If you are compelled to do it, then it is not friendly, because you are doing it begrudgingly. If the content is there, but you can take it or leave it without any consequences for your success in the content you do want to do, then that is friendly. At the start of the expansion, you couldn't even get access to world quests or 2 of the dungeons without some time spent with continued questing at level cap. This changed relatively early on, but was an example of a deliberate policy of putting speed bumps down even for alts. Now, in Battle for Azeroth, some of these lessons have been learned. Gating content behind reputation seems to just apply for the first character to achieve these requirements, and your alt should be fine. We also don't have the quest chains for professions, or the very unpleasant legendary system. However, artifact power is still there, and that by definition means that the expansion can never be as alt-friendly. If you just want to run Mythic Plus dungeons, then the artifact traits that are only obtainable in raids may be a strong draw. At the very least, you'll still want artifact power, which you may not get enough of from the dungeons. If you want to raid, you're almost certain to also have to do regular world quests, Mythic Plus dungeons, warfronts and island expeditions. We can probably be confident that Battle for Azeroth will at least be more alt-friendly than Legion. though we should still caution even that statement for now. So what is the best we can hope for? Well, if we can get enough artifact power to level up the Heart of Azeroth neck enough to unlock all the traits in our Azerite armour without having to do a load of peripheral content, then that would be a big improvement. Sure, gaining levels on the artifact also increases its item level, but those gains look to be quite small. In theory, it might even be possible to get the artifact power you need just by doing the content you want to do. So maybe raiding alone will give enough to unlock your Azerite raid traits. Maybe Mythic Plus alone will be enough to unlock your dungeon traits. However, this will almost certainly not be the case for two reasons. One, the purpose behind Artifact Power was always and still remains to encourage us to do content on a nearly daily basis. It's to give us the feeling that there's more we should be doing in the game, and so players who traditionally just subscribe for 1 month per content patch remain subscribed for longer. If they make the demands of Artifact Power light, then they negate the purpose of the feature. And two, Island Expeditions are probably the flagship new feature of this expansion. However, it serves no purpose other than to reward Artifact Power. If we could get enough from the content we want to do, then Islands would only exist as a curiosity which people would quickly get bored of. Blizzard have already this year sounded unsure of whether they will even remain relevant throughout the expansion. Now, we're used to doing chore work on a main, of course, especially if we want to run competitive content. But on an alt, whenever you're doing content that is a chore as opposed to what you want that alt to do, then that is unfriendly content, and the longer you have to spend doing those peripheral chores, the more unfriendly it is. There have been a lot of those chores in Legion, and Battle for Azeroth looks better, but it's still not even close to being as friendly as in the previous expansions. So, as long as you have to do content on alt that isn't just content you want to do, there is no way that the upcoming or any subsequent expansion can ever be as alt friendly as past expansions. They can only aim to be more friendly than Legion, and that was a pretty low bar to beat. Simply having lots of content to do doesn't make it alt friendly. It makes it content rich, but it's only alt friendly if it's friendly to your alt. So I hope you enjoyed listening to my opinions on the subject. I'm sure you have your own. I'd love to read them in the comments below and pick up a few in this week's mailbox. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for further content, and also share with others who may also be interested. And until next time, I'll see you later.